Welcome to Ultramodern. This is a lifestyle and creative podcast created by Crosswalk Future Of that examines the ways that God is moving and working in today's world. To learn more about Future Of, follow us on Instagram at futureof.cw.
Hello, welcome to the Ultramodern podcast. It's so great that you're listening in this morning. My name is Andy, and I have a very special guest here today. He is one of the best skaters you probably will ever meet in your life. He is one of the best surfers you'll ever meet in your life. I think he's probably one of the best snowboarders you'll ever meet in your life, and one of the nicest people I've ever met. He's a pastor here on staff at Crosswalk. He is none other than Mike Rhynus. What's up, Mike?
What's happening? You are too kind, brother, too kind. Thank you. Super stoked to be here, Future of Family. Just honored, super honored to be on Ultramodern.
Yeah, dude, it's so great to have you on here. When I was thinking about the list of people that I wanted, you were definitely in the mix.
Man.
Like I think you just have such good perspective on life, and not only that, bro, you have this way of just calming people. Like,
wow.
I don't know if it's to do with your Enneagram number or just your personality in general. You just have this way of just making people feel calm and like things are gonna be okay.
Dude.
And I for the past 2 years now that we've known each other, when did you start working at Crosswalk?
Almost 2 years ago.
2 years ago. I remember just growing our friendship. I was like, who's this guy? He's very happy all the time. And just getting to know you, bro, has been the best. And I mean, just to let everybody into a little bit of our friendship and relationship, like Mike has helped me through tough times, has given me the best advice. And bro, I am a better person because I know you. And I just know that through listening to this podcast, people are going to just gain so much and become better versions of themselves because of that, bro. So happy to have you on here.
Thank you. Praise God, man. That's high praise, brother. I really appreciate that. And I value your friendship as well. And I've been so thankful for our journey together. And I'm stoked for what the future holds.
Dude, bro moment.
Yeah.
Let's bro out.
Bro
That's
mo.
awesome. Bro moment. Dude, thanks so much for being here. So we are in like a series right now. It's called Rebuild the Dream. And this whole series has kind of been about building strong foundations for this year. So there's no question, 2020 was a crazy year. 2021 has had its share of crazy moments. And honestly, crazy is the new normal. Like things are just always going to be wild. You just got to expect that now. And one of the things that I found this year and last year is that I need to have the right foundations in my life for me to actually experience the goodness of God. For example, before COVID hit, my spiritual life or my life was very much based on my worship experience every Saturday, which was great because up until COVID, there was never an existence apart from that, right? We never thought like, what if we couldn't do this anymore?
Exactly.
Never thought about that. Then all of a sudden, COVID hits, and the one thing that was sustaining my faith is taken, and I found myself in a lot of lows, found myself looking and searching for God, trying to feel connected to God. And now that we've gotten to 2021, one of the things that I've really learned is I need to be intentional with building my foundations. If I want to experience the life that God has for me, I have to be intentional the ways that he's reaching out to me, you know? And what that's looked like is we've had conversations on prayer. We've had conversations on creativity. We've had conversations on, you know, the importance of devotional life. And one of the things that I've found in my life, not only in 2020, but in retrospect, since I met Josh and Isai, really, is that community is so, so important.
It's key.
It's key, bro. We're not meant to do life alone. And today I just want to have a conversation on the importance of community. What does community mean? What does it mean to have a true friend? What does it mean to have a church community? And, you know, for those who are in relationships, what does it look like to be in a right relationship, you know? So I just want to get started off by talking about this. I think there's been this disconnect between community life in church and church being this event that happens every week. And what I mean is, for me growing up, church wasn't really the people that I would do life with. It was the place that I would visit once a week. And I think it's really important to talk about why a community is necessary for your spiritual life. Church isn't just this event. It's actually the people you do life with. So can you talk to us a little bit about community? I know we were going to start off on friendship, but Let's start off with community.
Go with the flow,
Go
man.
with the flow, bro. Talk to us about community, man.
Oh, bro, thank you. Well, if I can just affirm your ministry really briefly.
Thanks,
like Future of family, you are blessed, because this guy right here is something else. I'm always just amazed. Your leadership, your intentionality, man, even just the way you're lining up this series for this community is amazing. So want to affirm that, bro.
You're the best.
Love
man.
what you're doing, man.
Thank you, Mike.
And I think you're absolutely right. Community is essential. It's key for our lives. And I witnessed that same exact thing when we shut down. Like, worship is one of the most powerful ways that I connect with God.
Yeah.
And so to go from this dynamic worship experience every week, multiple times a week, you know, like
dude.
there were days where I was in every single service, like full on, all out praise, you know?
Yeah, bro.
Like, I can remember just standing next to Pastor Tim and just like being in the moment, like tears of joy just flowing, you know, worshiping next to you, bro. Oh
man.
So I didn't realize how dependent on that I was.
Yeah.
Right. And so to hear you say that, I resonate with that so much. And that's something I think many, many people connect with as well. Man. So to go from that to nothing, like this hard stop, we went into lockdown. And really the way I would kind of categorized last year was like it was a year of disconnection, right? It was a total year of disconnection from close loved ones, even, you know, like our core, our key people in life. For our family, I'll speak for myself, like we were intentionally being cautious with how we engaged, even with our closest loved ones, right? So all of a sudden we go from just this full life where, you know, for me as like a pretty extreme extrovert, like time with others is what feeds me. You know, like it is totally like what I need. And so, we went from that to all of a sudden being isolated, being quarantined so many times throughout the year, like truly not seeing anybody for various reasons. And I think the communal element that you're speaking of in terms of how we connect at church and being part of this vibrant community of believers really, really suffered. So going back to the original question, how critical that is, you know, one of the verses that comes to mind in scripture from Psalms 133, you know, how good and pleasant it is when brothers and sisters dwell together in community, right? In unity. And I think in the Message version, I love it. It says like, how wonderful, how beautiful when good people unite, you know, I'm like, that's the word right there, man. It is a blessing from God. You know, I was doing a little bit of reading kind of in preparation for this conversation, and Dietrich Bonhoeffer, he has this book, Life Together. And dude, it's just, he highlights the value of community there. It's all about community. And one thing he says that really just hit me, he's like, it is a grace from God. It is an incredible grace that we're given to be together in community. Wow. And the beauty of it is really like that community that we experience as a gift from God is in Christ, and it's through Christ, right? So there's like this incredible like richness and depth that we really need for survival. I think you touched on that already. Like we need that element in our lives. Yeah, bro. So, well, I don't know if you want to roll on, or if I can say one more thing to this.
Yeah, keep going, dude. That's why you're here, bro. Keep going.
What I wanted to say was a bit more of a practical application.
Yes, please. We need practicality, bro.
I'm finding that even though we are disconnected physically, the ways in which we can connect virtually are still meaningful. Right? So I went from like my week before COVID would be back to back. I mean, some days I would have people coming into my office to meet for Bible studies or counseling or grief support or whatever. Like I could sometimes have like 4 or 5 like office appointments a day, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Which, like I said already, that's like super good for me. That's my sweet spot.
Nice.
So that all ended, but now I do all this virtually. Right? So I'm doing a lot of premarital counseling. I'm doing still a lot of individual and even small group Bible studies virtually. And there is this really sweet element to it. right? Like it is fulfilling in a certain sense.
Yeah.
Not the fullest sense, but there's certainly this element of fulfillment that comes from that. So if you're feeling disconnected, I would recommend like setting up a time to connect virtually with your core people, like with your friends, with your family. And that's even something we could do better at as well.
Right. Yeah.
But it's really important and it adds value for sure.
That's so good, bro, because I resonate with maybe the discomfort or the letdown people may feel. I'm trying to find the right word for it, because it's online.
Yeah.
And in reality, nothing is going to beat the in-person experience.
Right.
I mean, before COVID, there was this thought movement of like, we're going to move online. Like everything is going to go online. The future is online. And then we stepped into a realm where everything was online, and we realized, no. The in-person experience is really what we crave.
Oh, yeah.
And yet we're in a season where we can't do in-person the safest yet, right? Where we want to be intentional with that. So like, I understand, I resonate deeply with people who have a hard time experiencing community online, because talking to someone in a box or on text is so much different than this. Even this, like talking to you right here, is so great.
Yeah,
Last week, Tim almost, I don't know if he wants me to say this, 2 weeks ago, Tim had like a COVID scare, and he almost had to do a Zoom podcast, and I was like, yeah, it'll be the same conversation, but part of me was just bummed, right?
Yeah.
Because that in person is just so sweet. But again, I'm like hyping it up, but we can't even do these things. How can we find meaning, would you say, in the Zoom, or like every Saturday we're in the chat on Saturdays for church? Like, how can we find meaning in that right now?
Oh, wow, such a good question. So to a certain degree, I think we have to lean in, right? Like there's like a mental switch that we need to make where we say, like, I accept this means, and I will lean into this, and I will give it my efforts, right? So you can live in that space of like, this is the worst, this is horrible, and you can go down that route. Like it can spiral you out. Yeah. But if you have that mentality of, no, let me actually seek the good in this, let me draw the benefit from this and lean into that, I think that's the first step, obviously. I still, like when we're chatting online during church worship service, like, we as like staff here at church, we've kind of joked like, well, you would never be chatting with somebody in a live worship service. So like, why are we promoting chat right now? It's like, well, it's different because, the virtual means obviously you have that ability, that platform to chat, and you don't have, what's unique is that outside of the service, you don't have the time and space like you used to, right? So if you have a person is online for a worship service, you have them for that hour. Yeah. You don't have them for 20 minutes afterwards or 10 minutes before when they're mixing and mingling. So you kind of just have to take advantage in that moment. Right. So I think you got to lean in and appreciate it for what it is.
Yeah, there's a switch that the individual has to have in a moment like that, where I very much am also in that category, because as much like I'm a pastor here at Crosswalk and I'm there in the chat to talk to people on Saturdays, but there is a moment where I'm also part of the community because I also want to be fed and led. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's probably a responsibility on the individual to say, my relationship with Jesus and my community is important to me. And if this is the only way that I can do it right now, okay, like that's just what it has to be, which is just a difficult switch, because what I want is to be able to be in person, to be able to like talk to someone without the fear of getting sick or getting someone else sick, but I mean, right now that's not the case. And I think that's good advice to someone, like, just lean in. Like, you got to just lean in. Dude, what is your experience with church community in the past? Because for me, I've told this story before. Where I want to get to is why people need community, because I know people that will show up sometimes, like online, or show up in person when we were doing things, but they wouldn't like try to become a part of the community, like to gather together, to meet together. It was more of an event, which I've done as well. Growing up, for me, church was kind of a scary place, because it meant like talking to new people. You're super extrovert. I'm the exact opposite, bro. I'm super
Right.
introvert, right?
Right.
And it's super hard for me to talk to new people, to just put myself out there, because it's a very vulnerable place for me. Like, for me to put myself out there is for somebody to pick me apart. And I remember this one time, I went to a church. I won't say which church, but I went to a church. I was younger, and I didn't know anybody yet. But I was going to this church and I wanted to meet new people, but every week I would just chicken out because I was too scared to talk, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, I kept week after week just telling myself, like, this is the day. And as soon as I get in the moment, I'd be like, all right, next week, we'll get it next week.
Yeah.
And then I remember one Saturday, finally, I just told myself, like, Andy, this is it. Like, this is the day you're going to actually meet someone. And I remember getting to the church, butterflies in my stomach. I got into the classroom. I was right behind the group of boys that I had been wanting to talk to for so long. And finally, I just went for it. Went out, tapped the guy on the shoulder in front of me, you know, and he turned around and I was like nervous. And I just go, hey, I'm Andy. And, you know, when you say that in a normal conversation, right, they'll probably respond, hi, I'm Bobby, or like whatever it is. So that's what I'm expecting. And he goes, shut up, stupid. And just dagger in the heart, dude. I honestly, I couldn't comprehend what happened, because that was worst case scenario in my head.
Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes that's where your mind wants to go, but this time I didn't. And I was just shocked. I was like, oh. And, you know, he just turned back around, you know, and I remember leaving that day crying, like, I never want to go back to that church again. And that was, I brought this up a couple times in my sermons, and shout out to high schoolers who are listening right now, because they've definitely heard this story before. But I say that because that was kind of a formative part of my experience with church. Mm-hmm. Although that one kid wasn't the church, right? It was just an experience I had with the church. And for a lot of people, they're kind of scared of a church community. And rightly so. I would say if you were to ask some random person on the street how they felt about the church or how they thought the church felt about them, it probably wouldn't be the most positive list, right? It would probably be, I think the church is mad at me. I think the church will judge me, you know?
Yep.
And stepping into a church is so scary. But at the same time, like you said, community is a grace given by God. There's so much meaning in community. Yeah. So what has your experience been with the church community, and why is it important to the spiritual life?
Mm-hmm. Wow. First of all, shame on that person, man. That story always gets me. I'm like, oh, it just makes my blood boil, you know? Like, here you are, this introvert, like reaching out, like the amount of courage it took you to reach that level, like week after week, like building, and then just shattered.
Oh, it's gone, bro.
Oh,
dude,
yeah.
Thank you for the empathy, bro.
Oh, for sure, man. You deserve so much more.
Thanks, bro. I need Mike. Mike, you are the best, bro.
So, unfortunately, I think you touched on it already, is that a lot of times people will be turned off either by an experience in church or what they've heard about others' experiences in church. Yeah. So I think what you said is, like, it can be a very critical place, right? It's the place where you should come and experience the least amount of judgment and critique. And yet, in certain cases, it's the place that an individual will go and experience the most. Wow. Right? And it's devastating. I mean, it just, like this quote from Gandhi, like, I love your Christ, but I don't like your Christians. You know, I probably butchered that. But you know, like, there's this element of judgment from certain churches that just, it's devastating. Yeah, man. Right? Yeah. So what I love about Crosswalk is that one of our end statements is that this is a place of belonging. Wow. Right? So we are committed to acceptance. We are committed to people's experience here being positive, that we are opening, we're like, open arms, open hearts, open minds. Like, we just welcome them in love and grace and acceptance. And so, I mean, truly, this church, the experience at this church is like no other church I've ever been part of. Wow. Right? Wow. So to your question, I've, growing up, you know, I grew up here in Loma Linda, was part of Loma Linda Academy and all that goes along with that, but was at youth group at Loma Linda University Church, you know, like, had good experices overall. a really beautiful and transformative experience for me with church was when I was at seminary. My wife and I, Dana, we were part of like a small group church. It was called a cell church.
Wow.
And so part of the experience as a seminarian is you have to actually unite with a church and like serve in a ministry capacity.
Right.
And so I linked up with this church and, like had to lead a small group, but what's great was it was a small group of pastors, essentially, like other seminarians. So,
right. Yeah.
So it was really, wow, like the collegiality there was incredible because you never, like sometimes I think people hesitate to like lead a small group because they think I've got to know it all, or I've got to teach, or,
Wow.
like I don't know how to answer these questions and such. So it was beautiful to have just like a really robust and dynamic group of people.
Yeah.
But outside of that, wow, that experience was incredible.
Yeah, dude.
And the growth that came from that year plus of being in that small group. I remember when we were leaving, like I finished my time there, got my degree. It was our last group meeting. Man, they just circled us in prayer.
Wow.
And I'll share this experience. Like, I kind of hesitate, but this is something that was really profound for me.
Yeah.
Sometimes people say like, oh, I had this experience with God or whatever. And it's
Right,
like,
yeah.
sometimes people's ears perk up like, oh, what's this? But
Yeah.
for me, in that moment, like I had my eyes closed and I was just in prayer, like just receiving it. And this image, like this vision came to me, like as I had my eyes closed, of just like this beautiful like garden of flowers.
Wow.
And like aromas. And it was so profound that like I even in the moment I was experiencing it, I was just thinking like, this is something special. Like it
Wow.
was just,
Yeah.
and I don't know,
Yeah.
like I said, I hesitate to share it because it's kind of like out there, but I just, there was like such a sweetness to that experience.
Yeah,
it was
man.
a beautiful, beautiful experience. So we still are connected to a lot of those group members.
That's
and just,
awesome.
yeah, awesome.
Dude, yeah, so you said a couple of things that are really good, and one, I like the way that I don't know how to say, your brain works, or maybe the way that God communicates with you, because it seems like there was a very vivid imagery, or that matched your experience in that moment, like the beauty and the tranquility and
Yep.
the growth that happens in a church community.
Right.
And you touched on that lightly, that year you experienced a lot of growth because of that community. So I want to talk a little bit about that, because sometimes church isn't always known as the place where you grow, even though it would kind of make sense. But
Sure.
for some people, where you grow is like, you grow when you start getting educated, or you grow when you go to counseling, which is good. Go to counseling. I will always be an advocate of counseling.
Pro.
Yeah. Pro tip. But when it comes to church, for whatever reason, it hasn't always been the place where I'm going to go to church to learn to actually grow my heart. So what would you say to someone that is wanting to go to church, or needs perspective right now on why a church community can actually grow them? Maybe you could talk about your experience. Why did your church community grow you?
Right. So, wow.
On the
I'm not
spot.
sure.
Sorry
Yeah,
about that,
no.
bro.
That's totally. It's such a good question. I'm just trying to think of the best way to answer it. I think one of the unique things about Crosswalk is that, like, I'm like the discipleship pastor here. So a big part of that responsibility, I feel like, falls onto my role here, which I do hold in very high regard. But at the same time, I know that it's a shared responsibility that we all carry, right? Because we're all in that zone of like helping teach and guide others and helping others grow, right? In their relationship with God. So I think that our worship experience here, for one, when we were having it, was so dynamic, that it was helping a lot of individuals have breakthrough, have incredible spiritual growth, right? And then the way that Pastor Tim just breaks open the Word and teaches the Word, it has also, I've heard countless times where people just say, it's helping them understand things better. It's helping them grow in deeper ways and deeper connections with God. So I think truly the experience here in our church especially is very dynamic, and it's just conducive for incredible spiritual growth. And I think you have to be willing to have that and to have that be your experience, right? So something I actually wanted to tack on to what we were talking about earlier, as we were thinking about like how do you connect with community, part of the individual's experience needs to be a willingness to reach out and to ask for, communicate what the need is, right? Yeah. It was in regards to connecting online. Like if you're coming to church and it's an online chat platform, you have to be willing to voice your your need.
What you need, right?
Right. So I'm just thinking of recently, somebody in our community reached out, fairly new to faith, and they just sent an email to the church, which got passed on to me, and they said, hey, I'm just looking for ways to connect. And I was like, awesome. So I set up a Zoom meeting with this person, and we connected. We talked about surfing. Nice. It was really cool. Like, we had some commonality there.
Yeah.
And then I just started listing like the various ways they could get connected, like different ministries, Bible studies, small groups, talked about your ministries, like, serving in different capacities. And it has been the most beautiful thing, because this person and I, we started individual Bible studies. They joined one of our small groups.
Wow.
They come to our Thursday morning drive-in devotionals.
Yes.
They are fully in.
Yeah.
And it stemmed from their desire to reach out, an expression of that need, right? So I think that's really where it comes down to, is you have to, if you need it, you've got to be willing to ask for it. That ties into so many, much more of the relationship aspect, the conversation that we'll have, I think.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think a doctor can't help you. I'm saying that our pastors are doctors per se. We have the great physician, that is Jesus.
Yes.
But let's put it in terms of going to the doctor. The doctor can only help you if you tell them what's going on, right? Right. You don't even need to know exactly what the issue is, but if you don't express it to the doctor, what's going on, then how are you going to receive help, you know? And I think there has to be a willingness if you want community, if you're looking for people to do life with, well, then you got to reach out for that community, which places a bigger responsibility on us, right?
Yeah.
Because we have to create a culture where if someone's going to be brave enough or courageous enough to come with their questions or come with their needs, then that means we got to be ready, right?
Yeah.
So let me say this to anybody who's thinking about reaching out. We're ready. Come and talk to us. We want to do life with you. You are not alone.
Absolutely.
Dude, so we kind of just did, I like that we started with community. Yeah. We just did the bigger community that we should be a part of, church, right? Now, when you go to church, a lot of people, and there's a big community that you do life with. But then I think everybody also has their inner circle, the people that they do life with more intimately, right? So for me in my life, some of the closest people that I have are Josh or Isai, these people who know my story, who I am able to freely even talk about my past with or tell them about life with, And finding a friendship has been so important to my spiritual growth, my growth as a person, Can you talk to us a little bit about why friendships are important? And then what I want to get to is, how do we pick the right friends? How do we really lean into the right friendships? Because I don't think every friendship is good. But anyways, what do you think?
Yeah. All right, man. Good stuff. So why is friendship important? I'm thinking about Brene Brown. If you know her work with vulnerability and courage. She has this line, and I think it's daring greatly, but she says that as human beings, we're hardwired for connection, right? There's this neurobiology in our brain that is there is a desperate need for community and connection, right? So right there, the starting point is we need friends. We need community. We need connection, right? It's part of our being. It's part of our human experience, right? So it's absolutely critical that we have some core people, some key people in our lives that we go to, that we turn to, right?
Yeah.
So to hear you say you've got your people, that's awesome. I've got my people. I know listeners, you've got your people. Yeah. But certainly there are people out there that are feeling alone. They're feeling isolated. They may be wondering, how do I get people? How do I have that?
Yeah, that's real.
What do I need to do to get that? So I don't have all the answers for that, but no. So you can experience that by getting tapped into community, right?
Yeah,
maybe it's through the various ministries here. a small group. I mean, that's just a beautiful way to grow and experience one another and engage. So there's those opportunities. But yeah, friendship is so critical. And then what was the second part of it?
I think
we're getting to it, you said?
Yeah, like how do you pick the right friends?
Oh, right.
Which,
yeah.
Because I know in my life, I've had a lot of friends, but some of those friends probably weren't the most best friends that I should have let into my life, you know?
Yeah.
So how do you even make that distinction, you know? Like
For
who's a good
sure.
friend, who's somebody we probably shouldn't hang out with as much? Or I don't know, how do you even approach that?
Yeah, wow. Man, that is so good. I'm thinking back on an experience I had like 4th, 5th, 6th grade, taking it way back. I had this core group, like there were 4 of us, these 4 guys, myself and 3 others, just the best of buddies, right?
Nice.
We would do everything together. Like we were so tight. And there was one of us that was like more of the ringleader, I would say. And as we kind of like continued in our friendship and then in the years of like school and education, like he became like, just kind of a bad guy. Like he started like picking on people more.
Oh man.
And a lot of his anger all of a sudden started turning on to me for some reason.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and so I can recall like several things that he did or said to me that were like, they caused such deep hurt. Because here he was one of my guys, you know? Like I thought like we're best buddies, you know? Like we are so close. And here like, man, he did some things and said some things to me that like it took a lot of years for me to like work through or like work towards forgiveness even. Like I can remember as I was older trying to do some like therapeutic type of work, like healing past hurts and stuff. And this thing cropped up and I was like, whoa, that was like, I was like 10 or 11 years old, you know? And it was like a pretty deep wound. So the statement that comes to mind is that hurt people hurt people.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And what happened, what I was kind of oblivious to, like when you're young, you don't really know much about like a person's home life, what their experience is like. And his family life was pretty twisted. It was bad. There was just a lot of stuff going on, a lot of hurt. And that was just pouring out into his friendships and into his relationships, right?
Wow.
So I didn't have the wherewithal at that time to like distance myself because it was like, you know, like those friendships are really important, especially at a young age. Like now, if I were in a relationship where I was being abused like that, I would walk away or I would say like, hey, you're not treating me well. So I'm going to distance myself from you. Like I'm not going to put up with this. Right. But back then it's like, just like going back, you know, like whatever I can do to stay part of this gang, this crew, like this clique, you know, like I'll do it. I'll take the abuse or the trauma, you know? So I think, wow, in our lives today, like selecting friends, having friends in our lives, I think one of the most important things to like really identify is what it produces in you.
Wow.
Right? Like, is this relationship producing joy? Like joy is a real key marker in my life, right? And so like I look for that for sure. Is it something that's producing joy? Is this something that's bringing value?
Wow.
Is this, you know, like causing you even to produce good fruit, right? As we're thinking about like fruits of the Spirit and all these aspects of life, like, you know, I think about the difference between like, a positive experience and a negative experience, or what I would term maybe like a toxic relationship, right? So again, to go back to stories of my childhood, in high school, I started hanging out with some pretty toxic people. Like I thought they were cool. And, you know, like when I look now, like my parents definitely saw them as like negative influences, which totally led me down a path that I shouldn't have gone down. Right. But like, again, like in the moment when you're young, you're just looking for like acceptance,
fun, right?
Looking to have fun,
sure.
you know, like open to trying new things, new experiences. So I think as you grow and as you mature, you can identify those things more clearly. So a big marker, is joy or toxicity. You know, like what's this relationship doing for me? What's it producing and evoking in me? And then, like measure that. Like, am I becoming a better person because of this relationship? Or is this relationship causing me to feel more anxious or more stressed or more frustrated or upset or whatever? Or is it something that you say like, wow, every time I'm with that person, I feel better. It makes me want to be better or do better. Those are the measurements for me.
Yeah, I think that's such a good measurement as well, because I've been in friendships, relationships, around people where I'm just like, this is taking a lot from me. Like, it doesn't seem like I'm gaining more than I'm losing. And being in a toxic friendship can always, it's so difficult to get out of. And one thing that you point out is really well is that hurt people, right? So sometimes, like, I'm the biggest empath. Is that right?
Sure.
Empathetic, whatever the noun version of that is. Anyways, let's move on from grammar.
I'm with you.
I'm like really empathetic. So as soon as I understand someone's situation, I very much quickly move to like, oh, it's okay. Like, I understand, I get it, right? And I can see how that could also be unhealthy, right? To quickly forgive, well, maybe not quickly forgive, to quickly maybe brush under the rug and accept like the abuse or the toxicity of a relationship, right? How would somebody approach that? Because I feel like that's more common than maybe having a best friend, like having maybe a toxic friend or a toxic relationship, right?
Yeah.
And you may understand things, but how do you approach it? So, I mean, maybe in your life or relationships, like how has that played out?
Wow. Yeah. So the couple of things I'm thinking about is the importance of like vulnerability and just openness. Like, so in that relationship, if you are recognizing these patterns, especially if they're unhealthy and toxic, you have that onus on you to address it, right? And to say, like, kind of, I maybe mentioned that earlier, like, what you're doing or what you're saying is unkind, or it's causing me to feel this way, right? Like, and so you have to be willing to take that step, and I think that takes a lot of courage.
For sure.
Certainly for like maybe a person that's more introverted than extroverted, like that is willing, like you're saying, to be so empathetic and to, forgive time and time again, which we're called to do, right? Obviously, but that doesn't mean that when you forgive over and over again, you allow yourself to continue to be a doormat that somebody just walks all over, right? Like, you can forgive and you can move on. You can find healing from that hurt, but you don't have to continue to be hurt time and time again, right? So I think, we're certainly called to forgive, but you have to have that courage to know when to step away and to like engage thoughtfully and meaningfully, to say like, I'm gonna take a pause from this, or I'm gonna step back from you because of such and such.
Yeah, and I'm sure there also might be a degree of, no, that's not how I want to say it. What I mean is, if you're actually going to talk to the person, whatever friendship relationship that you're in, and let them know what you're feeling, that actually might be the first time they've ever encountered something like that, right? Like that. Sometimes, like you said, hurt people, and maybe nobody's ever had the courage to say, hey, are you okay? Like, you're I'm being hurt by this relationship, but is there something going on? And I mean, being in real friendships, one of the things that I've recognized is that I need to be able to call out my friend, and they need to be able to call me out on the things that I'm doing wrong. In fact, that's probably one of the markers of a real friendship or a real relationship. Like, can you tell your friendship or your partner, hey, you hurt my feelings when you said this, or that when you did this? And really, I think maybe a marker of a good friendship is that ability to tell the person, hey, you hurt my feelings, Right. And so one of my fears growing up, when my parents had the perfect radar on everything. Nice. Like, mom down, shut out you guys, because you guys always were right. But I remember them warning me about certain friends, and they would be like, that person's toxic, like, or that's dangerous, they're doing some things. And I'd be like, no, mom. And my parents were very kind. They wouldn't say like, you can't be friends with them. They would say, think about your relationship with them. Are you growing from it, Wow. And that would make me stressed out, because I would feel like the answer was, I guess I got to break off this friendship right now. But maybe one of the things that we're getting to is it doesn't mean break off the friendship right away. It means try working on it. Like,
Right.
have you actually taken a step to telling this person, hey, you kind of are hurting my feelings. Hey, you kind of make me feel unseen when you do this, or whatever the scenario is, right?
Yeah.
Like, try to approach it.
Mm-hmm.
But also there is that degree which I'm sure there's a point where you've done what you could, and if you're not gaining from this and that person's not growing and it's just this circle,
Yeah.
I mean, the hard decision at some point has to be made. Like, this is just not a friendship, not a relationship that needs to continue. That's super tough.
Bro, you said it right there, man. There are relationships that you have to have a hard cutoff with, right?
Yeah.
If it's abusive or if it's toxic to
Yeah.
like high degree, you've got to just step away. You got to get out of that. But then there are, on the flip side of that, a relationship that you want to still invest in, like you are committed to this person. And I love what you said about friendship being that honesty and that openness, right? That willingness to tell a friend, like, hey, that was a real jerk move, or hey, what you just said actually hurt me, like, or that was very like blatant or rude or whatever,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's important.
And so that is like expressing to them that you care, that you value their friendship, and that you're committed to their growth and their well-being, right? So to me, it's like shining a light into like an area of darkness, right?
Right.
Like we all have these things that we know about ourselves, things that we don't know about ourselves, and we have things that people know about us that we don't even know as well. And so sometimes it takes like a person being able to say that to you, or you saying that to a person, for that awareness to come.
Right.
And then, then some good work can be done, right? Then they can, like, if they're willing, they can engage.
If they can recognize the thing, or if you recognize in yourself what the issue is, right?
Yeah.
I think a way that you can say is you got to be honest, open, and transparent, or for short, hot.
Hot.
You need to be a hot friend.
Yeah.
Honest, open, and transparent. Shout out Mike
it.
Todd. That's so good. Yeah, I really resonate with what you're saying, because one, you have to be able to be honest with your partner, with your relationship, with your friendship.
Yep.
And a bigger degree of honesty is you got to be honest with yourself. Like, if you're the toxic person, be honest with yourself. Do you have issues? It's okay if you have issues. Everybody has issues. I have issues.
Yeah.
Mike, you might be the only person I know that doesn't have issues, but I'm guessing you got issues, right? Like, everybody has issues. If you have issues, it's not something to feel shameful about. It's just part of being human. We all have things that we carry that we have trouble with, And one of the biggest things that you got to figure out is, like, being honest with yourself. I need help.
Yeah.
And then also being honest with yourself in the other sense of, this relationship, this friendship may not be growing us. It may not be what is building us right now. And that's a degree of honesty that is also hard, also vulnerable, and also difficult,
For sure.
But really quick, can we talk about the importance of friendship? Like, Devin, what's the timestamp, bro? Like, how long have we been talking?
We're at 45, 40.
Nice, bro. Cool.
Wow.
We've got a lot of conversation in here.
Yeah.
Well, let's just keep going, because I want to talk about why a friendship is important. Because we talked about, we know that friendships are important, but we've talked about kind of the toxicity of it and what is necessary. But what are some of the growths that you've experienced from friendship? Like, what does it do for Mike to go out on a bike ride with I'm Casey? Like, what does that do for your heart? Why is friendship so important?
Right. So I said a little bit already, but for me, being extroverted, it's fuel for me, right? This is something that energizes me. So connectivity with friends is really important for me. It's good for my soul, my heart, my well-being, right? And what I also know about myself is that, like, exercise and activity is very needed. It helps me feel good all around, like mind, body, spirit, And so when I'm able to couple those things, like time outdoors, like just thinking about you and I, like when we are able to go skateboarding together, we're continuing to build our relationship. We're also doing something that we enjoy doing. I've always, this is kind of an aside here, but like skateboarding, I've always seen that as like a creative element of my life.
Wow.
Right? Like I'm not like musical. I'm not super talented in like a lot of other creative ways. But like when I get on a skateboard and I go to a new skate park and I begin to like discern like a line,
That's
where I can do
great,
this
dude.
trick there and do that trick there and then put it together. That's like a really creative space for
That's
me.
sick,
so I
bro.
love that, right? So
Yeah.
back to the main point here. It's good. It's really good for me to do those things that I love,
Right.
connecting with people and doing, like doing it around an activity that I love. Another important thing, just thinking about something that I've learned from some friendships, man, like generosity is such a beautiful element to friendship, you
Wow.
know?
I
Like,
love that.
when you mentioned Casey, like I remember one day we were biking together, and like when you're doing maybe like a longer distance or longer time frame like type
Yeah.
of sports or activities, you gotta have fuel for that, right? And so there are these like different types of gels and chews and bars that you can have, like. So Casey has this like specific brand that he loves, and one day he told me that he had bought this kind that he really liked, but it was like a double espresso flavor.
Ooh.
Like I love coffee, he loves
Yeah.
coffee, and he said that this one that he got, like when he tried it, it made him gag. Like the flavor was just like the furthest thing from espresso you could possibly have. And he's like, would you want them? And I was like, yeah, because there was like a whole box of them. I was
Yeah.
like, well, even if
For
they're making
free?
me
Sure.
gag, like I'll use them. Like I'll get through them, right? Like,
Yeah.
So he ended up giving me this box, which I was super appreciative of. And then like a little while later, I forget what it was. There was some type of like, it was not like a birthday, but something a little bit like monumental. He comes to me one day and he gives me like 2 boxes of like a really delicious flavor. Like it was like a
Yeah.
salted strawberry and like a
Ooh.
lemon lime one. And I was like, dude, I was just so overwhelmed by the generosity.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that so much about friendship, where you can give, you can take, you can receive, and I think
Wow.
that's such a beautiful element,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I feel like at the heart of that is like, wow, there's a person that really cares about me.
exactly.
There is a person that was
Yeah.
thinking about me when I was thinking about whatever.
Right.
It's just having that person that kind of will, just think about you and offer things to you and just
Yeah.
have someone that has your back. I think that's what it is. That will have your back and will do whatever he needs to or she needs to for their friend. Like that. That is a
Exactly.
great feeling, bro.
Dude, that ties in. That's like a marker for some of my friendships as well, is like thoughtfulness,
Yeah.
right? Like for me, a lot of times, like after I hang out with somebody, like for instance, after you and I go skateboarding, a lot of times like I'll be thinking about it afterwards,
Yeah.
and I'll text and I'll be like, yo, that was a fun
You do
session,
that,
bro. I'm
dude.
so glad we went out. So glad
Dude.
we connected. And that's just like one additional piece to show like, hey, that was a really valuable experience for me.
Yeah.
And I'm still thinking about it, right?
That's great.
And so I noticed that like thoughtfulness with like certain friends of mine as well, where it's like, because I do that, like it's a valuable practice for me to do that. When I receive that, I'm like, oh man, that's a great friend right there.
Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
cool.
It kind of ties in, I would say, like with love languages. I don't know if
Okay.
you like know much in that realm,
A
or
little bit.
listeners do, but we each have, like a certain love language. There's a variety of them, right? We all need to be fulfilled in every category, but
Yeah.
certain categories are more important than others, right?
see,
So
yeah.
like words of affirmation is really big for me. A physical touch, like affection, really big for me as well. But like gift giving is one,
Yeah.
like quality time is another. Like those
Yeah.
things are all like needed as well. Like I know I need those things, but
That's
like
so good.
truly like the ones that feed me, like it talks about having like a love bank, and your bank will be full
Yeah.
when you're fed in those specific
Right,
ways.
Yeah.
That's like we so often we try and speak the language that is important to us.
Right.
So in a relationship, for instance, a marriage, or like a boyfriend, girlfriend, if you're trying to communicate to your partner the love that you want and need,
Yeah.
it may be different from what they want and
Wow.
need.
Yeah,
Right? So it's really
definitely.
important to know, like, okay, what is my partner's love language?
Right,
How do I speak
yeah.
to them? How do I feel their life, their love bank
Yeah.
in a way that's fulfilling to them, right?
That's so good.
So
man.
yeah, like as I do a lot of premarital counseling, I talk about this a ton because I just recently was talking with this couple where one of them was saying like, I would just love to have more of this. Like they're expressing that need and they felt safe in that space to communicate that.
Right.
And it's like, oh wow, like the other one is recognizing like, I need to speak that language. I need to do that more so that they're fulfilled, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that was a little bit of a tangent.
No,
but
that's good because relationship and friendships, I mean, they're different, but they have similar components, right? And you could figure out your bro's love language and love on your bro. You know what I'm saying? The bromance needs to be real, or the sis-mance. I don't know how to sisters or your partners, your friends. You know, like it's good to figure out how to fulfill them and how to be there for them and how to love them. And dude, just to affirm, I can't tell you. You just put into perspective something really important for our friendship. You do that. You do text after events. And I can't tell you how much that actually does mean to me.
Wow.
Like that actually does make me feel like, oh man, Mike enjoyed that. I enjoyed that too.
Yeah.
And it's just this unifying thing, you know?
Right.
And I mean, that take the idea of that. And I think it's important to apply that to your friendships, apply that to your relationships, figure out your partner or your friends or your family members' love language, right? And because you love them, because you care about them, fill up their tank, you know, like for those who like gifts, get them a little chocolate or whatever. If it's your love language is physical touch, give them a nice bro hug. Sometimes a good bro hug is just everything you need, you know.
Totally.
That is so good, bro.
Yep.
Bro, this is good perspective. I really appreciate you being on this podcast today, bro.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Well, dude, if you have anything else that you want to share with us before we go.
It's been so good, man.
It has been really good.
Really good conversation.
It has been. I'm excited for people to listen to this one.
Yeah.
There's some gems on this podcast, bro, for sure.
Beautiful, man.
All right, man. Well, love you, bro. Thanks for being here. Hey, guys, thanks so much for tuning in to Ultramodern. If you liked what you heard, go ahead and share this podcast with somebody. This is a very important podcast because I think community and friendship is so important. So share this with somebody. And yeah, we love you so much. Thanks for listening. Catch you guys later.
Peace.
Peace.